Okay, we're going to get started. First off, let me thank you for spending some of this beautiful afternoon inside learning about insurance. My name is Tom Humphreys, and I am the director of the Risk Management and Insurance Center at Olivet College. Olivet College houses nationally ranked insurance and risk management degree programs. And as a service to people in Michigan, we wanted to share information that's going to be pertinent when you begin to make decisions regarding your auto insurance, especially in light of recently passed legislation. Just so you know, there is a chat box that is going to be available. As we go through the presentation, if you have specific questions, please feel free to use that chat box. And at the end, as time allows, I will try to address as many of those as possible. Additionally, a video recording of this will be posted to YouTube, and the email address that you utilize to register for this webinar, you'll receive an email with a link to that video presentation. So let's go ahead and start. But before we do, I have to take care of some legalese first. I want to make sure you understand that this presentation highlights the new no-fault law from a consumer perspective. It's not a complete summary, but is meant to be a very general overview. It isn't intended to be construed as legal advice and is for informational purposes only. What I'm going to present to you is what we know today. It is subject to change as the Department of Insurance and Financial Services and specific insurance companies interpret and implement the law. There, that's out of the way. So why are you here? To find out what's important for consumers. Here are the topics we're going to cover today. First, changes to the order of priority for PIP, or personal injury protection. As I go through this presentation, in insurance we've got lots of acronyms. So I've tried my best to spell out what those acronyms mean. And as I go through, I will again reiterate what those acronyms stand for. So personal injury protection is essentially, most people consider it the medical coverage of an auto policy, but we'll see it's much more than that. So we have an order of priority for PIP as far as which auto policy is going to respond. That's going to change. Also, we have something called the Michigan Assigned Claims Plan, or MACP. There are going to be new benefit levels that are going to be implemented in that plan. New choices for your PIP benefit levels and a corresponding reduction in premium. You will see currently your PIP, or personal injury protection, on your auto policy is unlimited. In a few months, you will have options to reduce those limits and receive premium discounts. Our liability coverage for auto policies is also going to be changed. Rules for what's called Mini-Tort and also Tort Changes are going to be implemented. Tort simply means the at-fault party pays. We also have forms that we have not seen before. By giving you choice for both your personal injury protection and your bodily injury liability limits that you can choose from, you will have to complete mandatory forms to indicate what your choices will be. And lastly, the new PIP benefits, or personal injury protection benefits, how will that affect the assessment that the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association, or MCCA, charges? We'll dive deeper into each one of these as we get to them. So let's start out with personal injury protection, or PIP. PIP, as I mentioned, is a lot more than just medical coverage. Even though from a consumer perspective, they think, well, this is just like my health insurance that I get through work or through a policy that I buy individually. Far from the case. As you can see on your slide, personal injury protection encompasses many benefits. First off, allowable expenses. Allowable expenses is medical coverage, but there's so much more. I've got an asterisk next to that because we'll delve into what allowable expenses are on the next slide. But also included in personal injury protection are work loss benefits, meaning that if you become disabled because of an auto-related accident, we will replace your income at 85% of your wages, and that will be covered for up to 3 years from the date of your injury. Also included in personal injury protection is replacement services. This is capped at $20 a day. Replacement services can be a myriad of things, but primarily these are things that you did around the house prior to your accident, and now due to your auto-related injuries, you cannot perform those duties anymore, such as mowing the lawn, cleaning the house, doing the dishes, laundry. We also have survivor's benefits. If you are killed in an automobile accident and you have a surviving spouse and or other dependents, work loss benefits and replacement services would be payable to your survivors. And lastly, attendant care. Attendant care is a critical piece of personal injury protection. If you're injured in an auto-related accident and need someone to take care of you at home, you become a paraplegic or a quadriplegic and need someone to help bathe you, feed you, clothe you, help you use restroom facilities. That's what attendant care is. And this can pay for a professional attendant, or it could even reimburse for family members to take care of you. We've got a lot of coverage here. Allowable expenses, the one we had the asterisk next to. Here's what's included in allowable expenses. First off, medical expenses, doctor's visits, hospitals, surgeries, MRIs, x-rays, physical therapy, rehabilitation, and also prescriptions. We will also cover in allowable expenses vehicle modifications. Again, because of your injuries in an auto-related accident, you need to have modifications made to your vehicle or an additional vehicle to operate with your injuries. So vehicles can be made wheelchair accessible, and they can also have modifications made to allow someone to operate the vehicle, such as brake and accelerator controls being put up close to the steering wheel. Home modifications. Again, because of your injuries, it may be difficult or sometimes impossible for you to navigate your home. Your personal injury protection can pay for elevators to be installed, ramps, and also bathroom modifications to allow wheelchair or other types of accessibility. And lastly, medical mileage reimbursement or special transportation. After an auto accident, you often are going to require additional medical services. This will pay for your transportation to and from those appointments, whether it be mileage in your own vehicle or special transportation to get you to those appointments. As I said before, this is a lot more than just medical insurance. Earlier in the first slide, I mentioned the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association, or MCCA. Here's how our policies work in Michigan currently. You have that personal injury protection, which you're going to be charged a premium for on your policy by your auto insurance carrier that actually pays for the first $580,000 of your lifetime benefits from an auto accident. But once those benefits or claim payments reach $580,000, then the MCCA takes over and they pay for all of your allowable expenses and PIP expenses unlimited. Michigan is the only state that has this type of coverage. It is premium coverage, but as many of you know, it comes with a substantial premium cost. So to give you an idea of where this is located on your policy, I've taken a snippet from an actual auto insurance policy declarations page. Now, yours may look different than what we have here, depending on your insurance company, but this will give you an idea of what to look for. So PIP, your personal injury protection, is highlighted in red, and you'll see a corresponding premium. The MCCA is listed as well. Now you'll notice on this policy, it lists MCCA and the MATPA, the Michigan Auto Theft Prevention Authority. They have lumped these two mandatory charges together on this declarations page. I mentioned the order of priority, and for many people, this is foreign. What are we talking about with a PIP order of priority? And the order of priority relates to which auto policy is going to be the one that responds to someone's auto-related accidents or injuries. So we have a current, and then we have what's going to happen effective July 2nd of 2020. So currently, we have this order of priority, or essentially a pecking order, who's going to pay first. So our first order of priority is the insurer of the named insured, meaning if I buy my own auto insurance policy and I'm involved in an auto accident, my auto policy will pay for my benefits, whether I'm in my car, whether I am a passenger in someone else's car, or I'm a pedestrian. So if I'm walking across the street and someone hits me and injures me, then my own auto policy will pay. If I don't have my own auto policy, then we're going to look to the second level of priority, which would be my spouse or a resident relative. Do they have an auto policy in their name? If so, their policies will respond for my injuries. Well, I don't have my own auto policy, and perhaps I live alone. Then we go to level 3, which is the insurer of the owner or registrant of the accident-involved vehicle. Essentially, the car that's involved in the accident is going to pay. If there's no coverage there, then we go to the driver's auto insurance policy, if they are not the owner of the vehicle. And lastly, if those first 4 levels are not available, we have our safety net, the Michigan Assigned Claims Plan. And these are all currently unlimited benefits, as I've described. So it's going to be very difficult for someone right now to be in an auto-related accident in Michigan and not receive unlimited PIP benefits. Well, these things are going to change in July. Now, let me clarify. Someone just posted a question saying, hey, didn't these changes take effect January 1st of 2020? Not necessarily. In order for these PIP changes to have taken place, the auto insurer has to file their new forms with the Department of Insurance in order for it to take effect. So while I'm saying this takes effect July 2nd of 2020, there is a possibility that your current auto insurance carrier has implemented this new order of priority already. Now, they should have notified you via endorsement to let you know. So that's something you may want to check on. But here's our new order of priority. And the first 2 are exactly what we saw from what we currently have. The insurer of the named insured is going to respond first. So I'm in an auto accident and I have my own insurance policy. It pays for my benefits. I don't have my own policy. Then we go to my spouse or resident relative. Here's where it gets different. If neither of those policies exist, then I go immediately to the Michigan Assigned Claims Plan. We've taken out order of priority 3 and 4. That is significant because instead of unlimited medical benefits, the MACP is going to be providing a cap of $250,000 worth of PIP benefits. Significant reduction. We have to talk about motorcycles as well. Motorcycles, while many of us consider them to be automobiles, are not in the way our auto policies define automobiles and the way our insurance code defines automobiles. And thusly, we're going to have a different order of priority for motorcycles. Now, the priority for motorcycles is actually staying the same as it was prior to this new law taking place. However, because of the choice that people will have in choosing PIP benefits, it could significantly reduce what a motorcyclist receives if they're injured in an auto-related accident. Order of priority number 1. The insurer of the owner or registrant of the motor vehicle involved. Let me say that again. The insurer of the owner or registrant of the motor vehicle involved. So if I'm on a motorcycle and I get in an accident with a car, regardless of who's at fault, the PIP benefits I receive will be coming from the insurer of that automobile. Now, we do have an order of priority that does end with the Michigan Assigned Claims Plan. So why is this significant? If the insurer of that automobile, if that policyholder has chosen, which we'll see what the options are, $250,000 worth of PIP benefits, as the motorcyclist, that's what I get. Now, if the person has opted out, then essentially, level 1, there's no coverage there, and then we would go to step number 2. So motorcyclists should take care and note that the automobiles that they get involved with, their benefits very well could be limited by the choices of the insured on that auto. So we have choices. What are these choices? And how much is it going to save me, right? That's what we're really concerned about. Can we save some money on this? Well, here are the different options that you'll have come July 2nd. 1, you can stay with an unlimited PIP benefit, just as you enjoy today. And by doing that, you are going to receive a 10% reduction in your PIP premium. We have to be careful with this because it is not a 10% reduction in your overall premium. It's a 10% reduction on just that PIP line item. For those of you that are sharp and remember what the premium was on that policy that I displayed, the annual premium for PIP was $240. That means by keeping the same benefit level, that policyholder will receive a $24 per year discount. Not much, but it's still something, and we've retained unlimited medical benefits. If you'd like to save more, you can drop down to $500,000. So the maximum the policy would pay for all of those wonderful PIP benefits that we discussed would be $500,000. And for that, you'll receive a 20% reduction, again, on just the PIP line item premium. Another step down, $250,000, a 35% reduction. For people that are on Medicaid, Medicaid recipients will take a $50,000 limit. And for that, they will receive a 45% reduction in PIP premium. So what happens if I have my own medical insurance? That's typically one of the complaints that I hear is, I've got my own medical insurance. Why am I being forced to have this PIP stuff on my auto policy? Well, now you have the option to exclude it. If you have Medicare, Medicare Parts A and B, people eligible for Medicare typically are people 65 and older. There are some other exceptions where people could have Medicare, but primarily it's 65 and over. If you've opted to take both parts, you could say, I do not want any PIP on my auto policy. And for that, you're going to get a 100% reduction in that line item. Additionally, you have your own health insurance through an employer. or you have your own medical insurance that you purchased individually from an insurance company. You have the ability to opt out and receive 100% reduction in premium for that PIP line item. But we've got a big asterisk there. You have to have what's called qualified health coverage. What is qualified health coverage? Well, your health plan does not exclude auto accidents. Additionally, it does not have a deductible larger than $6,000 per person per year. So if your plan does exclude auto accidents, or you have a very high deductible health insurance plan, unfortunately, this would not be an option for you. Just to show what it looks like side by side, our unlimited plan, the first $580,000 is covered by your PIP line item, and then the MCCA will take over from there and frankly go off of the slide unlimited. You could save 20% by going to $500,000. You could save additional premiums by going to a $250,000 limit. Medicaid recipients $50,000, and if you have that qualified health care, you could say, I don't want any of it, save the premium. Now, as I mentioned, we have this Michigan Assigned Claims Plan. All right, it's been in existence and has been at the very bottom of those order of priorities to catch people that didn't have coverage elsewhere. Well, effective July 2nd, as I said, those limits are going to go from unlimited to $250,000. Again, we have an asterisk here. If you were a person that had qualified health care and said, I would like to opt out, in the law, it states that once you lose that health care, perhaps I leave that employer and I no longer have health care, I have 30 days to let my auto insurance carrier know I no longer have that qualified care. I need to sign up for a personal injury plan. Well, you have up until 30 days to make that notification. What happens if you get in an auto accident during those 30 days? The plan will now pay $2 million instead of $250,000 towards PIP benefits. So we could call it a bit of a grace period where you've got some time to let the insurance company know, and if an accident should occur, you're not stuck with that $250,000 worth of benefits. The MCCA, the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association, assesses every policy as we saw on the sample declaration page I showed you. The charge is $220 per vehicle per year. Now that's important. It's not per policy, it's not per person, it's per vehicle. So if we have 3 vehicles on our policy, that 220 is multiplied times 3. Well, beginning July 2nd of 2020 and going through June 30th of 2021, the assessment is going to be reduced from $220 to $100 per vehicle. The MCCA reviews their projected losses on a regular basis, and they have the ability to adjust these assessments based upon the losses they see trending. Customers who choose unlimited coverage is going to pay the revised fee, the $100. But if you opt for something else, a $500,000 limit or down, the MCCA would have the ability to assess your policy on a reduced basis if losses for unlimited medical benefits are trending higher. So if you opt to stay with unlimited medical benefits, you're going to receive that 10% reduction in your PIP line item, and you're going to receive a $120 per vehicle reduction in the MCCA. So you could certainly opt to keep those great benefits, and you are going to see a premium decrease. So how in the world are we going to justify these rate increases? I know many times people think, well, insurance companies are making all sorts of money, they can afford this. Well, they do have to have reserves to be able to pay these claims and still remain viable as an entity in the future to make sure they can pay future claims. One of the ways rate reductions are going to be achieved is a medical fee schedule. Right now, when you're in an auto accident, medical providers, so doctors, hospitals, rehab facilities, or other medical service providers can essentially charge whatever they feel is reasonable for that service. Now, when you have your own medical insurance, when you go to the doctor or you go to the hospital, most likely your health insurance carrier has already pre-negotiated a rate with that medical provider, thus producing some savings. That doesn't happen right now with auto insurance. I've seen many figures that show an MRI for non-auto related accidents costs $600. An MRI for an auto-related accident is $2,500. What a huge difference. So effective July 1st, auto policies are going to be implementing fee schedules for medical providers to help justify and sustain some of these rate reductions that we're going to see. So what does this mean going forward? Well, coverage is not going to extend to a named insured's non-relatives who live with them, or to relatives who don't reside in the same household, even if they're listed as a driver. Wow. Let me take you through a few examples to let that sink in. First, you have a child, or you have another adult who uses a vehicle that's titled to you, but they've got residency elsewhere. So often, children will go off to college and take a car with them. When they go, they change their address, perhaps so they could vote, or perhaps so they can get in-district tuition at that educational institution. When they do that, they are no longer a resident of your household and therefore no longer eligible for PIP benefits. You're living with someone else who is not a spouse, meaning you're not legally married, or you're not related, a significant other. They don't have their own auto insurance. You have auto insurance in your name with 2 vehicles that you own, but they drive one of your cars. They will not receive PIP benefits because of the new order of priority. This is going to really change the game as far as how PIP benefits are going to be paid. You have to pay very close attention to where children or other adults that are relatives, where do they have their address listed on their driver's license. That is just one way to establish residency. As claims come about and situations arise, there may be other ways for insurance companies to say, this person is not a resident of your household. Even though they have your address listed on their driver's license, they don't have a room. They're not dependent upon you for their income or for their well-being. Unfortunately, many of these questions might have to be answered through litigation. Again, this is what we know now. Tort changes. As I said, tort means the at-fault party pays. Well, right now, a person who's injured in an accident, they're able to sue or seek damages for what we call non-economic losses, pain and suffering, and then also economic damages. Economic damages means I've got a bill. How much you're going to pay me for the money I had to pay because of your negligence in this accident? Now, right now, the excess PIP benefits is essentially wage loss beyond 3 years, replacement services, and survivor's benefits. Because under our current system, your own auto policy is paying for all of your medical bills and all of those wonderful PIP benefits. So essentially, we can just sue for that pain and suffering. In order to sue, the threshold is essentially what we call a verbal threshold, meaning there's a description of the injuries. So you have had to have suffered a serious impairment to a major bodily function, which could include things like a loss of a limb or significant scarring. Well, coming July 2nd, things are going to stay the same as far as what you're able to sue for. But if the person that I hit and caused significant injury to them, if they have opted for a lower limit, perhaps they've opted for a $250,000 limit for their personal injury protection benefits, they can now sue me for all of those losses that exceed their PIP limit. That's sort of scary. I could be on the hook for a significant amount of money. So the limits that we're required to carry for liability. Liability means I have caused bodily injury or property damage to someone else or their stuff. And we're primarily concerned right now with those bodily injury limits, not necessarily the property damage. So currently, in order to drive legally in Michigan, you have to carry $20,000 per person, $40,000 per accident. Those are the minimum limits. Right now, they're not adequate, in my opinion, and hopefully most people carry higher limits. July 2nd, the legislature actually did think this through a little bit, and the new minimum limits are going to be $250,000 per person, $500,000 per accident, anticipating that we're going to have more lawsuits and you could be liable for more bills. But just like our PIP, you have the ability to make a choice. You can certainly buy more, but you are allowed to buy less. And the minimum limits that you can drop down to from those default limits is $50,000 per person, $100,000 per accident, as long as you have completed a required form indicating I have chosen these reduced limits. Now, I'm going to talk just briefly about two additional coverages called uninsured and underinsured motorist liability coverage. This is not changed under the law, but I want to explain it to you and then show you a declaration page again and hopefully help you understand why these are going to be critical coverages going forward. So these are optional coverages. The state does not require us to purchase these. However, they are highly recommended. Uninsured motorist coverage. This is a line item coverage that I could purchase if I sustain injuries when someone else is at fault and they're driving without insurance. That doesn't happen in Michigan at all, does it? Unfortunately, it does. This would include hit and run drivers. The theory is a hit and run driver probably is taking off because they don't carry insurance. So I'm injured, I would go to sue that at-fault party, and they don't have any insurance. I'm probably not going to recoup anything. I would then go to my own insurance carrier and look at the limits that I've purchased and hopefully be compensated through that coverage. Underinsured motorists. Well, this is similar, but these are situations where someone does have liability coverage. They have liability coverage, but they don't have an adequate amount. Perhaps they're driving with those state minimums that we just talked about, the $20,000 per person, $40,000 per occurrence. They injure me in an auto accident significantly, and I go to sue them, and a court says, Tom, your injuries are worth $100,000. they have $20,000 worth of coverage on their policy. Trying to get that additional $80,000 out of someone is going to be difficult at best. Again, I go back to my own policy and work with my own insurance company to be compensated for the missing amount, depending upon the limits that I've purchased here. We do have one change for our auto physical damage, damage to your car. For the most part, everything we've been talking about have been medical benefits or liability coverage doing injuries to others. But we are going to have a slight change. Now, currently, we allow something called Mini-Tort. Remember, tort is the at-fault party pays. Mini, obviously, is small. So, you hit my vehicle and do damage. And I have liability only. I did not purchase collision coverage. Or I have collision coverage, but I'm still responsible for my $500 deductible. Under the Mini-Tort rules, I can go after you, the at-fault driver, to collect back the amount of money that I am out up to $1,000, or my deductible, whichever is going to be less. Come July 2nd, those Mini-Tort limits are going to be increased from $1,000 to $3,000. So where are all these things on my auto policy? Well, our bodily injury limits are right here. Many times it's listed as residual bodily injury. In Michigan, we've thrown residual in front of bodily injury because residual means what? What's left over, the residue. Because we have all of these wonderful PIP benefits, there's not a lot left over to be able to sue an at-fault party for. And if there is, here's where the protection comes from. Our uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. Now, many companies will list them as separate line items. Other companies may combine them together and provide and underinsured motorist coverage as one line item. And then Mini-Tort. Some companies may call it special tort liability. Some companies may automatically include it in your policy. So the key is to look at your policy and speak with your agent to find out what your limits are and what might be appropriate for you. So forms. This is something new. Yes, we're used to signing applications and acknowledging coverage that we would like to purchase, but we are going to have to complete a form if we choose different levels of that personal injury protection, or if we choose bodily injury limits less than the default limit of $250,000 per person, $500,000 per occurrence. So the law that's been passed says that these forms have to be completed at every renewal. Now this is subject to change. Some are looking at the PIP choice as being signed once, and then it will be good until you decide to change it. So you're going to have to talk to your specific company to determine if these are going to need to be completed every single renewal. If you don't make a choice, if you don't complete the form for bodily injury, well, those default limits are going to apply. The same goes for your personal injury protection. If you don't indicate a choice, one will be made for you, and that will be at the best coverage available, which is unlimited. These forms can be completed either on paper or they could be done with electronic signatures. Again, every insurance company is going to handle this differently depending upon how they are able to implement these changes. So, what should you do? What should you do as a consumer? Well, first off, I would recommend you speak with your current health insurance carrier to determine, do you have qualified health coverage or not? Now, the Department of Insurance and Financial Services has issued a bulletin asking health insurance carriers to create a letter. So when policyholders request it, they can easily send a form saying, this policy meets the requirements for qualified health care, and here are the individuals in your household that are covered by this plan. Now note, this was not a requirement. This was a request or a suggestion. So some health insurance carriers may do this, some may not. But that would be the first question to ask. Do I have qualified health care? Next, you should speak with a licensed insurance agent in the state of Michigan regarding what your options are and what your pricing is going to be. Each company is going to have different rates. Now, I do have to provide a little caution here, especially as of this moment. I have not seen any insurance companies' rates yet. Most companies have filed their changes with the Department of Insurance and Financial Services. However, to my knowledge, no carrier's rates have been approved. So if you call your current agent today, they might say, here are some of the options, but we really don't know the price differentials. So this is sort of a wait and see until those rates are approved. Primarily, you need to take a look at what additional risks you're going to take on and the lower levels of coverage in comparison to your premium savings. And everybody wants to save money, right? Well, we have to weigh those premium savings with coverage or benefits that we're going to give up. So even though, hey, we can opt out of all coverage together and save potentially $300 or $400 or even $500 a year or more, depending on how many vehicles we have in our household, look at the benefits that we're going to give up that I described in that personal injury protection. I can't make that decision for you, but you need to weigh those risks, take a look at your personal situation, and make a determination that's going to be right for you. Lastly, I would strongly, and I emphasize strongly here, consider purchasing a liability umbrella. What's a liability umbrella, you ask? I'm glad you asked. Liability umbrellas provide extra liability coverage. Many times people think that liability umbrellas are there to cover everything. They don't cover physical damage to your car. They don't cover physical damage to your house. They're there to protect you, again, if you cause bodily injury to someone else or property damage to someone else's things. Given that people are now allowed to reduce their personal injury protection benefits, as I mentioned earlier, you could be on the hook for a substantial amount of money if you seriously injure someone and they have taken something other than unlimited medical benefits. So the way that this works is you have your auto policy, and perhaps you chose $500,000 worth of coverage there. And you have a home policy, and you've chosen $500,000 worth of coverage there. Well, without an umbrella, once the policy hits those limits, if you are still liable to that injured party, those losses come out of your own pocket. Umbrellas are sold in $1 million increments. So the smallest umbrella you can get is $1 million worth of coverage. You could buy 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, however high your insurer will allow you to purchase. So if I get in an auto accident, my auto policy pays for the first $500,000 and they stop. But with an umbrella, they will say, we'll pick up right off where your auto policy stopped, and we will pay up to an additional $1 million. So it doesn't mean you have $1 million worth of coverage. It means we've got $1 million stacked on top of our auto policy. So in the instance you see on your screen, you've got $1.5 million worth of potential protection. Many policies of this type vary in cost. For an average homeowner that has 2 cars and a home, typical annual umbrella policies range from $150 to $250 a year. Pretty inexpensive for an extra $1 million worth of coverage. Something to consider, and your insurance agent can assist you with this. So here's some additional resources for you. First and foremost, talk to your agent. All right, talk to your insurance agent. They are working on getting well versed on all of these changes, and insurance companies that they represent are working hard to figure out how they're going to implement these new laws and communicate these changes to you, the policyholder, in a comprehensive and coherent way. You can also go to the state of Michigan Department of Insurance and Financial Services website, michigan.gov/auto insurance. There is additional information for you to look at and help you discern some of these options and what might be right for you. If you're an insurance nerd like myself, you can actually go and look at the actual law that is changing our no-fault system. I've got that listed here as well. It is Senate Bill number 1, and there's the link to the actual law. And lastly, I've got my email address right there, thumphreys@olivetcollege.edu. I and Olivet College in our insurance and risk management program want to be a resource to people in Michigan regarding these changes and, frankly, any other thing insurance and risk management related. So please consider us a resource to help you. So with that, I'd like to open it up. It looks like we have some already. So give me a moment while I take a look at our group chat and see what we have. All right. First off, order of priority. Which insurer pays if I am insured but driving someone else's car, which is under a different policy? So the key here is with that order of priority, remember I said your policy is going to follow you. So this says if I'm insured and I'm under in someone else's car, your PIP is the one that's going to pay for those benefits. Isn't the reduction on the PIP medical portion only since wage loss and replacement services aren't included in the PIP limit? That is correct. So the wage loss and replacement services are outside of those $500,000 and $250,000 limits. If a person elects less than unlimited PIP, do they still have to pay the MCCA? No. At this point, the MCCA has said there is no shortage in their surplus. So if you choose $500,000, $250,000, $50,000, or opt out, there is no MCCA charge. The only persons that will be seeing an MCCA charge for the coming year are people who opt for the unlimited benefits. And again, that will see a $120 reduction in the assessment per vehicle. It was my understanding that the claims plan won't cover anything if the accident occurs out of Michigan. Again, you are correct. I did not include that as we had limited time and tried to keep it as simple as possible. But there are significant limitations for injuries that occur outside of Michigan, and the Michigan Assigned Claims Plan will not cover those. Is there a reason a Medicare participant would not opt out? Excellent question, and one that people are going to have to contend with. So Medicare recipients, typically 65 and over. These are people that many times are on a fixed income. So their premium costs are going to be extremely important to them. Opting out may save them significant money. But again, we have to be concerned with what will they lose. They will lose attendant care and some of those other PIP benefits that we discussed, home modifications, auto modifications, medical mileage, that Medicare is not going to pay for. Again, they will have to weigh the premium savings with those additional PIP coverages that they are going to give up. Frankly, if I see people that are going to opt out, this would be the group of people that I think would be most logical to perhaps say, we want to opt out to save the premium. All right. All right, let me see what we got here. I fit into the scenario you described. My girlfriend and I live together, but I own the vehicle and just have her listed as a driver. What's the best way to make sure she is covered? All right. Well, some of this is going to depend on your insurance carrier. One, you could co-title her on the vehicle and add her as a named insured. That way you're both listed. Now, not all insurance companies are going to allow that. If they don't, there is something called a named non-owned policy. These are policies that people can purchase who don't have an automobile of their own. I see this happen in larger cities where mass transit or mass transportation is common. So I don't own a vehicle because I take the train or I take a bus to work. But what happens in that situation and I'm in an auto accident? Because I've rented a vehicle or now I am in someone else's car. You can buy a policy that will cover for those things. I know it may not make sense. I'm going to buy an auto policy when I don't own a vehicle. That is one of the options you have available to make sure you have protection in those situations. Commercial policies. Commercial policies are essentially going to have the same order of priority. But for those of you that deal with commercial insurance, hopefully you remember that workers' compensation is king, K-I-N-G. It rules over everything else. So if we have an employee that is injured in an auto accident, it's going to go straight to workers' compensation. What are the disadvantages of opting out if I have a qualified health plan? Well, again, if you have a qualified health plan, that's wonderful, but you're only going to get medical coverage. You are not going to receive wage loss, all of those other allowable expenses that I mentioned, in addition to the other PIP benefits. So you have to weigh, what am I giving up versus the premium I'm going to be saving. When people who opt out, will people who opt out get coverage under MCCA? Oh, so if you opt out, you're not going to be paying a PIP premium and you won't be paying the MCCA assessment. So therefore, you will have zero coverage, zero. And again, the only way you can opt out is if you have Medicare Part A and Part B, or you have that qualified health care coverage. How do we protect ourselves for driving out of state? So what would happen is if you're driving out of state, your PIP typically is going to follow you. Now the MCCA isn't, but your PIP should follow you for out-of-state accidents. We're very close on time, and I'm going to wrap it up with just one other question that's been posed to me a lot. I've talked to people about these different options, and they look at me and say, okay, Tom, what are you going to do? What options are you going to take? Well, I can tell you, I haven't seen the rates, just like your agent and you as a consumer haven't seen the rates. So I'm going to hold judgment. But my inkling is I'm going to stick with the unlimited benefits. I'm going to save a little bit on the PIP, 10%, and hey, I'm going to save $120 per car on the MCCA. I'm still going to save some money, but I really want to retain those PIP benefits because frankly, I've been in the insurance industry for a little over 30 years. And I've seen people that have needed those PIP benefits and they are very thankful and they're very comprehensive. And if I ever am in that situation, I'm going to wish I had those. One last one, deductibles on qualified plans. Qualified plans, you are still going to be responsible for those deductibles. So if you have qualified health insurance, you're going to be responsible for those deductibles because you have opted out. But the deductible threshold to be considered a qualified plan is $6,000 per person per year and no less. If your deductibles are greater, it's not qualified health insurance and you don't have the option to opt out. So thanks again for tuning in this afternoon. You will receive an email with a link to a web version of this in YouTube. And you have my email address. Please feel free to email me your pertinent questions. Stay safe out there. Have a great day.